I'd like to introduce our speaker, or probably one person that I know that really needs no introduction is Dick Williams. He's won just about every accolade or award for history. He was telling me today that he started his first program here in 1970, so he's 55 years later, he's still going. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce to you Dick Williams.
Good afternoon. Isn't it great to live in Clinton, New York? Who wants to move to California?
No.
What a mess out there. I feel so badly about that. Anyhow, as Wade said, I'm going to give a little talk today about Clinton houses, which you all are familiar with. You buy these houses every day. Well, how many of you do you know much about each house? I don't know everything about every house in Clinton, I'll tell you that. But I have some pictures here of the four or five styles of homes that are built here in Clinton. And you really could pick almost any upstate city or village and give you the same program. But the same styles are usually in most cities of this area. You go to Rome, North George Street in Rome has some beautiful homes. Go down Herkimer, down the valley towards Albany, and so forth. So this is, we think that Clinton's unique, and it is in a way, but the styles of houses are not unique to Clinton. So with that caveat, we will move along. This is my first house. My wife didn't like it, so we sold it. I don't know where I found this picture, but anyhow, it's a house someplace somewhere that somebody lived in. Can you imagine that, living in a house like that? In a cold winter with ice and rain, snow. This is a little better. I don't know where this one is either, but it's at least they got a chimney on the side there. That's a big improvement, I suppose. Yeah, they got a porch. How's that, huh? Boy, they must have been a high-class family. Now this is a real house. This is on Route 5 in Herkimer. Are you all familiar with the Palatines or not? I'll give you a 2-minute talk about the Palatines. I never knew a thing about Palatines until about 20 years ago. I went to school in Clinton, I went to school in Syracuse, I never heard about the Palatines. They were just kept out of history books for some reason. But the Palatines are an interesting group that came over from the Palatinate over in France. They went back between Germany and France for different years there. And they finally went to England, and they came over here about 1701 to New York, to the New York colony. And they moved up the Hudson, and some were, were on the servant plan. They had to stay for so many indentured servants, I'm trying to say. And others came up further up the Hudson, and now over in the valley there south of Albany, not the Hudson, but the Schuyler. No, I'm forgetting my valley down there. What's the valley south of Albany? In the Catskills. Help me out here. I can't hear it.
Hudson.
Coble's down to Cobblesville way there. Okay. Anyhow, they came further. They then moved up to the Mohawk Valley, and here's an original Palatine home from the 1780s. It's on Route 5, just west of Herkimer. So this is one of the first homes in this area. I'm just giving you some background here what these homes, the other areas had. And the Palatines were very industrious. They were Calvinists or Presbyterians, and they built lots of churches. This church is still standing down off Route 5, east of Herkimer. Beautiful church. And of course, Johnson Hall, William Johnson, the Indian agent, was also instrumental in this area. This house is here in Johnstown. And Fort Herkimer Church predates the Revolutionary War. Yeah. This is on Route 5S down in Herkimer County. So just some structures were here. We were settled in 1787. So there was activity to the east of us, nothing of any much to the west of us, except the indigenous people. I've been told I should use the word indigenous. I can't use Indian anymore. So, but east of us, there was more activity all during the pre-Revolutionary War period. And of course, General Herkimer had a house. Here it is. allegedly a Kirtland cottage, although Hermine Williams, as some of you may know, wrote articles about it, that it was not the Kirtland cottage, so I don't know. So take your pick on that one. Okay, styles of homes in Clinton. As I said, we had settlement to the east of us, not much to the west of us, and we have in Fort Schuyler, which is now Utica, 3 log homes, we think around 1785, 87. There was a low point, there was a ford in the river, the Mohawk River at Utica, right by Union Station. And that's where some of the earlier log houses were there. Fort Schuyler was called what Utica is now. And in Clinton, supposedly a fellow named Ludum Blodgett, in the fall of 1786, started a crude house someplace in the park over here, with elm bark, roof, no floor, windows, or doors. Sounds like a modern house, right? And they had crude huts with crotch stakes, poles laid, and bark siding and roof. You know, it was sort of rustic, I guess. And in 1787, we have our first settlement here, 7 or 8 families from Connecticut who came here and stayed for many years. There are none, somebody asked me occasionally, are there any of the founding family members still alive? To my knowledge, none of them are still alive, so I don't know. But there were lots of trees around here. Can you imagine lots of trees? You know, what do you do with trees?
Lumber.
You cut them up, right? You build houses. So here's some of the brands, or not the brands, the types of trees we had here. I'm not sure they're all around still. I'm sure there's some maples and ash and elm and birch and beech. I'm not sure about basswood or butternut or wild cherry. But you need somebody to cut these trees up. So guess what they do with the first, besides the first having some church services, a grist mill became very important, and a sawmill, obviously to produce the woods for structures of homes. Okay, here are some of the real Clinton buildings now, starting with the Anderson Cottage up at Hamilton College, or College Hill, I mean. It's on the north side, about halfway up the hill. You all recognize that?
Yeah.
I'm sure you all do. 1793, the Andersons were a family that lived there into the 1920s. They had several children, and at one point the college bought it, and it used to be used for faculty apartments. I'm not sure what it's used for now, but it's one of the oldest houses in that area on the hill there. Here's a side shot of the east side and the south side. Okay, I'm not an architect, but I do want to mention some terms to you, because I'll be mentioning them as we go through the various styles of architecture. A gambrel roof is usually a pitched roof. A barn is a gambrel roof. One slope is steeper than the other, so you get more hay up in the mound. If you didn't have that hipped roof situation, you get less hay up there. A pediment is the triangular part of the front of your house. You'll see many of them. A lintel is something over a window or a door. It might be wood, it might be iron, it might be stone. And it's usually, it goes horizontal over the window or the door. So those terms you'll be hearing on and off. And of course, a gable is usually a section of a roof at the end of a pitched roof. A cornice is usually molding at the top of a wall, like we have here. And pilasters are structural columns, as you'll see also. I love that term, pilasters. That's a great word. Isn't that a nice word, pilasters? And I never knew much about it until about 20 years ago. And we have in this town a couple Palladian windows. Aren't you thrilled? So hold your breath on that one. Okay, federal style. I have a pointer here. How does this pointer work? Okay. The first style is federal. And we are blessed with many federal style homes in this area. As you can see here, the features are, what's going on here?
Pushing the wrong button.
Let me try again. Okay. A symmetrical facade, usually gabled ends with sometimes elliptical windows up in the gable. Sometimes flush boarded walls, gable or hip roof, 2-story pilasters, a prominent entrance, fan-shaped windows over the doors, side lights of the door, and a graceful effect, sometimes with large windows. Now, These definitions do not apply to every federal house you're going to see today. So don't say, aha, you didn't have that thing, you don't have a gable roof, you don't have a... The local carpenters did their thing, and their thing was whatever they wanted to do. And they might have said, I want a federal style house, but 10 different carpenters might make it a little different. So don't hold me to what a pure federal style house is, because I can't tell you exactly. Except it has many of these features, maybe not all of them. Okay? Fair enough? Number one, the Burns Agency on West Park Road has the classical symmetry. Notice this is like you can slice it with a knife, and you have similar windows on each side, and you have, well, there's no gable end there because it's right next to the block. But this is one example of federal style. I don't know, I never know why this was faced south. Why wouldn't this be facing West Park Road, you know? And I'll never know the answer to that, but I've often wondered. And here's a better picture of it. Still in great shape, it's 1790, one of the earliest buildings in the village. We're often asked, what's the oldest building in the town of Kirtland? I don't know. I know what some of the oldest ones are, and this is one of the oldest ones, dating to the 1790s. Now driving down Kirkland Ave, you recognize this house? We call it the Pond Baker House. Pond was the first, one of the first settlers, and they built it, they found 1797 on some timbers up in the attic, so it might be a couple years before that, but anyhow, it's a beautiful style. This house has the window lights I'm talking about. You see these two window lights here? And some have a fan window over the door. This house does not have a fan window. It's now owned by Christian Goodwillie, who's spoken to you several times here. But Charlie Baker was the owner back in the 50s and 40s, and the Ponds were the original owners. They painted it. Which do you like? You like this or this? Okay. You recognize this house? Ozias Marmond, a Revolutionary War soldier, built this house, or had it built in the 1790 period. This is a federal style. Again, they're not all pure federal style. For example, those little arches over the door, that's over on the porch, that's sort of different. And but it is, I'd say, in general, it's a federal style architecture. Ozias Marmond owned all the land on Marmond Street back to Chestnut Street. He was the one who sold that off and developed that area. And he was a Civil or Revolutionary War soldier. And again, some of the features more specific here in the houses like that are federal style: a symmetrical facade, simple hipped or gable roof, elliptical windows at the gable ends, ornamental balustrades, pilasters, 2 stories high usually, or fan-shaped windows. Now here's a good example of a fan window. Whoops. Okay, this is the house up on, see that window there? It's called a fan window. And they have side lights too. This is not the best picture, but there are side lights and a fan window in this federal house. So some have all 2 of those things, some have just one, some have none. This is the Rogers Peach Galloway house up on Bristol Road. I'm not sure who owns it now, but you all know what I'm talking about, 233? Okay. Here's a picture from the air. Beautiful old house with barns. I'm not sure what's in the barns now. Okay, Franklin Springs has a federal style house. Again, sort of a federal style house. The porch doesn't add to the whole thing, but the symmetry is there. And also, you'll see here, the elliptical gable window. Is that nice?
Yeah.
It has a nice touch, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Modern houses are so plain. They have these 2 or 3 bedroom houses today. They don't have any of this stuff. It's a shame. Now, going out on Bristol Road, you recognize this house? This is the Heinz house, the former Harold Heinz house. I guess it's still in the Heinz family. Just beyond Foot Road on the left. You with me?
Yes.
Okay. This is a lithograph from the 1850s of that house. And this house shows the outbuildings and so forth. It even shows a horse running by. But today it looks like this, and here's these nice pilasters, which I love so much. You see these? There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, there's 6 of these pilasters. They're vertical columns. You cannot walk around a pilaster. A regular conical column, you can walk around, right? But there's 6 on this house. And this is called a 5-bay house. There's 5 sections, left to right. Again, up in the gable, they have a nice oval window, and their front door has a fan window and the side windows. You see that? Can you all see in the back? I don't know. Can you see these features? It's still in great shape. It's in the Heiss family. I'm not sure who owns it exactly, but it's one of the first houses. This was on the Washington tract. George Washington and George Clinton, our first governor, owned this land back in 1790, and the first settlers bought and built this house in that period. Another shot of it from down by the road. And this was a Griffin. Nathaniel Griffin was the builder of it. And here is this is daughter's, I think this is his daughter's tombstone at Oberg. Is that right, Joanne?
No,
Is this the mother or the daughter?
I think that's his stone.
Oh, that's his, Nathaniel?
Yeah, hers is kind of in that
Okay,
like
yeah.
cryptic shape.
Anyhow, the Griffins were an early family, and here's one buried in the old burying ground. There's half a dozen buried down there, I believe, of the Griffins, right?
Yeah.
And some of their stones have crumbled quite a bit. Okay, so that's basically the federal style. Except we're going to show you a little bit of this building, which is sort of a conglomeration. Is this federal? Is this, what is this? I don't know. Georgia, maybe. The right side, see the right side in the center section was the first section they built. This was put on back in the 60s, or 50s, I'm sorry, the 50s. So this was built originally in the 1820s. And there was a fire in 1979. You remember that fire? Anybody? Okay. Keep your eye on the front of the building. I'm going to ask you a question in a minute. Right now, by the way, this is now the Williams Mansion, owned by the Alexander Hamilton Institute for the Study of Western Civilization. It was Nathaniel Williams was the first owner and the first builder. 1830s. Now, what do you see different about this front? It's got a porch. They did not replace the porch after the fire. So they were not good preservationists, were they, I guess? Of course, it cost money, I'm sure, to build a porch. Yeah, the porch is gone, see? The porch is gone right now. This is currently how it looks. And this is how it looked for years. This is 1945 when it was a restaurant. Those cars are about 1937 Oldsmobiles or something. But notice the pilasters. See the pilasters there? There's 3 sections, only 3 sections of this house. And here's an older picture. This is before the wing on the left side. And this was probably 1920s, 1930s. Here again is it's got the fan window and the side lights, hasn't it? So is it federal style? Well, in that section it's federal style, yes. It's not federal style always because it's got a flat roof. Federal styles didn't have flat roofs. Is it a roof or a roof? I never know the difference. And here again it is with the porch. Okay, some other area buildings have similar general styles of federal. Here's a building on College Street where some realtors are using it now to sell houses. This is on Old Kirkland Road, sort of a variation. The back porch, or the back roof rather, has a little different situation. This is on Old Kirkland Ave. And on College Street at 96 College, this house is sort of a conglomeration of different styles. In a way it's federal, but it's got that there, so they stuck a Greek revival roof on a federal style house. But you can do those things. Don't worry about it. Build it any way you want to build it. If you're not a pure stylist, that's fine. Mappa Hall up in Barnaville, do you ever recognize that place? Again, that looks pretty much federal. Well, they got the Greek roof up there, the Greek revival roof with an oval window in it. So they mixed some styles too, right? There's nothing wrong with that. And up on Harding Road, we have this house was owned by a Samuel Kirkland nephew, and this has now been added on to. It's a beautiful house. This has pilasters, 4 pilasters across the front. See, they got the oval window up on top there. You see that? Up there, they got the pilasters. So that style, this was about, we don't know exactly when this was built. We think around 1820. Here it is from the row. They put a big addition on the back right. It's a big house to begin with, now it's a bigger house. Beautiful house. Okay, up on the Lombard Road, Dr. Denison has a house that's federal style. Now this picture's not the best picture, but it's got the elliptical window up on the gable there, see that? Then on Lower Couch, this is sort of a combination. It's got that Greek inverted V front up on top, but it's got, on the front door, it's got a straight across, not a fan window, but a straight window across the top, and 2 side windows. And it's got the elliptical up on the top there. So again, carpenters can mix up styles, owners can mix up styles, no problem. The Harding home on Harding Road, of all things, built on the site was Samuel Kirkland's original home. This is much different from Samuel Kirkland's original home. But there's a beautiful house up there now that looks like this. And here's the Palladian window. Are you ready for this? Look over the front porch. What do you see? You see a center window with a rounded top and 2 side windows. You see that? That is a Palladian window. If you want to impress your friends with your architectural knowledge, say, I saw a Palladian window the other day. How about that? Now they're a little closer up there. It's usually a 3-part window with the center part larger, and usually a rounded top. So that's a Palladian window. So is that a federal style house? Well, I don't know, it's sort of a mixture. It's got, I don't know, it's got columns, it's got Greek columns. Okay, this house at one Utica, we're only a few feet away from this house. You recognize this house at 1 Utica Street? Well, it's sort of federal, but it has windows on each side of the front door and across the top. But the rest of it is not really too descriptive of federal. But it's an old house, again, back in the 1805 period, I guess. This is from a book. I'll read this for you. It says, flush plank siding on the front. It doesn't overlap. It's flush siding on the front. And he says the federal door typifies the federal style with a transom and side lights built by Emmaus Stebbins. Stebbins is the name of a road down here. He was an early Clinton landowner and merchant. Louisa Barker lived here for a while waiting for the female division of the Clinton Liberal Institute to be built up on Chestnut Street. So this is sort of federal style, but it's got the side lights and so forth. There's a nice shot of the door. Would you rather have the fan window on the top or the straight window? What's your choice? Here's East Park Road. 9 East Park Road used to be a B&B. Now it's, I believe, just a private home. But it has the symmetry. Keep your eyes, look at that front and look. Keep your eyes looking at this. This is the same house, folks. Would you believe it? There was a 2-story bay window up on the 2nd floor of the porch. How's that? And then the porch had a roof on it. And there was a 3rd story up off the. See the two window bay window on the porch. In some ways, 1920 Ford Model T, I guess. And the 3-story chapel on the hill is a unique building that by itself. It really doesn't fit any style, although it's has some features of federal style, but it's got the sort of like a Palladian window over the front door. And down on College Street also, up on the hill rather, that is this building, on the Root Homestead, and this has pilasters. Can you see them there? Here. So that was a very common feature. Again, the chapel, which we all know and recognize. And here we have on Kirkland Ave, sort of a federal style house. You recognize that, Joey?
I do. Yeah, very much I recognize it.
And notice how this has been modified. It's now, looks like that.
That's what it was when I was there.
Now I understand.
What a change. It went from this house with beautiful pilasters, fan windows, side light windows, sort of a federal style situation. And over the years, the owners, and I don't know, have modified it. So today we have this. And the new owner has put beautiful gray siding. This house looks beautiful now. Did you buy it recently? It looks great. It really does. And it's all one color. It's not stuck. See, that was stucco on the right, and clapboards on the left. Right, Joey?
Yes.
It was apartment houses back in it's probably back in the 30s. Of course, it was a private school for girls at one time back in the 1820s and 30s. And but I would call it federal style. Up on the top is a sort of a triangle up there. So it's not an oval window, but it's close to it. Other area houses that sort of fit this style, the Floyd House. You ever been through the Floyd House up in Westerville? You ever been to Westerville? You ever heard of it? Okay. I went through it once several years ago. Who was William Floyd? The only Oneida County resident who signed the Declaration of Independence. You got that? That'll be on your quiz at the end of the program. Again, federal style. Then we come to Jesse Curtis on Kirkland Ave. Is this the federal style? No. This is one of the oldest houses in Kirkland. If you go by it every day probably and say, why the heck's that thing still standing? It's right off, you know what we're talking about? It's before Robinson Road on the right. Jesse Curtis was an early pioneer, 1805, and he built this house. I'm not sure which part first, but he looks like he had it on there at some point, doesn't it? Now, here's how it looked around 1975. He had barns that went right attached to the house. You see that? That was typical in England. They put their barns right next to their house, right attached to it. And that's how Jesse. There's Jesse Curtis's house. That's the back part, of course. And he had. I'm not sure he was a milkman because later on George Brady. This was his sign to sell milk. He had grade B raw milk. How about that? Huh? Would you want some of that tonight? It was tuberculin tested, whatever that means. Delivered to your door early each morning. All right. Call up George Brady, get your milk. He lived there. That was his farm. Into the 1930s. Now this house on College Street, I can't quite describe what the style is. It's sort of federal, but not really federal, but anyhow, it's different. And we used to call it the old Doyle House. I'm not sure who owns it now. Does anybody know who owns it?
Oh, they rent it, it's rented.
Are you here? Is the owner here?
It's been rented.
It's been rented.
Anyhow, we're moving to Greek Revival, folks. Am I going too fast for you? What's Greek Revival? Well, you all know what the old Greeks looked like in their buildings, I think. And there were basically three kinds of columns. You all should have learned this in your 10th grade world history course. Did you? Yes. There was Doric, Ionic, and Corinthian. Now, Doric and Corinthian were styles. Corinth was a city, the Bible was in Corinth, one of the cities back then. I'm not sure where Ionic came from, but there's Ionian Sea that branches off the Mediterranean at some place. So you remember this. I want you to chant after me: Doric, Ionic, Corinthian. Ready now? Doric, Ionic, Corinthian. All right, you got it? And they have, of course, the triangular pediments, the gable ends, which I've been talking about, and the cornices, usually horizontal wood over doors. And here we are. You got them? The fluted means that they're not smooth, they're carved out. And the Ionic has usually some fancy work around the curls there, right? 600 BC. Was anybody who's here today, we were alive in 600 BC? You don't recall that, I bet. And Corinthian, really fancy. Look at that. Boy. They got to 500 BC, they put some real fancy work. And how did they work on these things with tools of that period? It just, all this work amazes me. All the work they did on all these old buildings before the 1920, like the Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris that just got rebuilt. Amazing how they worked on it back then, you know? There was no computers, no saws, no electricity, and they did this stuff. Beautiful. Of course, the Parthenon is probably the famous example. Still standing, I guess, at least parts of it are still standing. Anybody ever see that person?
Yes.
Been there.
Is it still standing, most of it?
It was back in the 60s.
447 BC, well that's pretty good. But we do have, to bring it to Clinton again, we do have some homes around here with really similar, or kind of college, kind of Greek revival. And here's one at 65 College, I'm not sure who lives there now, does anybody know?
Bremer. Tim Bremer.
That I don't know here.
You want to know?
But it's got the,
I'm sorry.
it's got the,
You never know.
and those look like square columns to me. So, that's okay. Put a square column on that Bible house, I don't care. Across the street is this house. Now, what kind are these? Very good. You get an A plus. This is a house at 72 College, beautiful house,
Yeah, the pillars.
big house. This has the two side light windows of the door and a straight piece of glass across the top, not a fan. So you can put a fan, this is a Greek revival, but you could put a fan over the top of that front door if you wanted to, I guess. Who's going to stop you? This house was a big house, so the current owner put a big addition out back, two-story addition out back about 5 years ago. So this is a very spacious house. And up on Chestnut Street, top of Williams, we have this house. It's now a private home, but it was always been a private home. But before this time, on the site was the Clinton Liberal Institute Female Division, where Clara Barton of Red Cross fame attended back in the 1851-52 period. When and they had large wings on each side, which you'll see in a second here. This is how it looked for many years. And some people maintain that the center part, the columns are the same as in the old picture. I have no proof if that's true or not, so I don't know. But here's the current house, a beautiful house. Got a nice fan window up at the top, and it's got the 4 columns in front there. So, other homes, 32 William Street. Recognize this house? Across the St. James Church on William Street. This is over on Route 5 and Kirkland. This is a barber shop out back. There's a little. It's on Route 5 in Kirkland. This is up in Franklin Springs. A nice 4-column Greek revival up there. Again, the front's Greek revival. What they do behind the front is up to them, I guess. The former Kirkland Presbyterian Church. Did you know that this was a church over in Kirkland?
No.
It's been an antique shop. I think it's a private home now. It's right on Route 5, just beyond French Road, on the north side of Route 5. It was a Presbyterian church from the 1840s to about 1950. And those are sort of Doric columns. I'm not really sure. And they stuck an oval up on the top there. On 65 Kirkland Ave, I don't know if it lives there now, but it was formerly a Schoon's Farm. Then optometrist Lafferty. Some of you may remember his wife Theo. Lived there up to about maybe 10 years ago. I'm not sure who lives there now. They've done quite a bit of work on it, and you see those top of those columns, can you figure out which they are from where you're sitting?
Corinthian.
They're Corinthian, all right? Beautiful. So they painted to bring out that feature, they painted the top parts there a different color, which is very nice. It was also used on municipal buildings such as Utica State Hospital, first originally called the Utica Asylum, the Insane Asylum, yeah, Insane Asylum. Now it's down there just dying, sitting there fading away. Okay, we've talked about Greek revival, federal. We're going to move now to part 2. Gothic, Italianate, Villa, Queen Anne, and Second Empire. I'm going to finish up with a big bang, kit homes. So stay tuned. If you want to leave early, if you got to see the bills or whatever, I won't bother you. Are they on yet? I don't know. They always win, so what's the problem? Okay, we got to go back to Europe, which is a good idea at any time to go back to Europe for architectural styles. We say, okay, for Europe, don't they? I guess. Gothic revival. We just rebuilt Notre Dame just for this program. They rebuilt it for us, so we talk about it. Just so beautiful. I mean, this style. I was in Europe just twice in my life, but I did go to Notre Dame. I stood right on the altar where Napoleon was crowned, or whatever. It was right by the big, beautiful rose window. Oh, couldn't believe it. Anyhow, it's rebuilt, thank goodness. And verticalness is the whole style. Everything is vertical. Spires, the flying buttresses, the towers are all vertical. And you see here Westminster Abbey in London, 1245. You know, that's quite a few years ago. And Notre Dame is now rebuilt, but that's from the 1200s too, so that's 1,000 years. But the whole vertical situation is the main. They're the flying buttresses. You don't know what they are, don't you? I don't want to push the wrong button. There's those things at the bottom left there. They support the roof by going outside the building, basically. And here is in Belgium. Beautiful. Look at that. Look at that woodwork on those spires. I just can't believe how they did those things back in 1899. This is in Ostend, Belgium. But we have some examples of this right here in Clinton, New York. So don't be worried. We have St. James Episcopal Church, which is not quite as impressive as the one in Ostend, Belgium. But it's got a vertical siding, it's got those narrow windows. It did have a tower until it was blown down in a storm in 1892. On top of that tower you see there. And so it's considered Carpenter Gothic. So it's maybe not pure Gothic, but it has that feature. And here's the church and the parsonage next to it up at St. James on William Street. So try to picture that tower there with a big spire, 130-foot tower or spire. Some years ago, that was not today's snow. And St. James, 1912, beautiful, gorgeous church. This church is,
St. Mary's.
what are you pointing out?
St. Mary's.
Right there. 1912, they had a wooden church on this site for many years, from 1850 to 1910, 11. They tore it down, and some of the lumber from I just showed you the mansion up on Chestnut Street there, they had the 4 columns. Some of the wood from that building was used at the Clark Mills Church of the Annunciation. At the same time, they were taking down that mansion on Chestnut, building the Assumption Church in Clark Mills, and also the new St. Mary's Church, which of course is now built with lumber from here. This is all from stone, from marble, from quarries, and so forth. but a beautiful example of Gothic architecture. Not as good as Notre Dame, of course, but certainly it's a beautiful church inside and out. It's now at it's 110 years, 115 years. But St. Mark's in Clark Mills is a similar style, and notice the narrowness. It's a smaller church. It has the exposed beams. This is St. Mark's Episcopal Church on White Street in Clark Mills, which is no longer a church. It's a private home. Two gentlemen bought it a few years ago, and they're living in it. So this is what happened to this church. There was a dedication of this new sign about 10, 12 years ago. As town historian, I was helpful to get the sign to put outside that church, which was built in the 1860s. And here's a nice picture of it when it was still an active church. But again, the vertical sense, the windows very long and narrow, the siding all vertical. The Annunciation Church in Clark Mills, I don't quite know which style this is, but I want to show it to you anyhow. So sort of Gothica, vertical windows, I guess. Right here on Chestnut Street and Williams, we have this old house, about 1850, which we have to sort of call Carpenter Eclectic or Carpenter Gothic. It's hard to pin down its style here, so I won't. It's got a two-story bay window at the front. That's nice, but it's kind of hard to pin it down. I went in the house. It's a very nice house inside. It's been sold a few times. I'm not sure who lives there now. This is not a good picture. This shows the front, the two-story bay window, and a side shot. It's got a nice tin roof on it, or steel roof on it now, isn't it? Okay, there's very few Gothic revival houses except this one down on College Street. Do you see where that is? Okay, this is notice all the fancy work up on the roof line there. It's got vertical siding. It's sort of Gothic revival. I'm not saying it's pure, but it's sort of it. But unfortunately, they put this other building in front of it in the 1920s as a gas station. So here's a picture of the front. But right in front of that is a pizza shop today. It was a gas station for many years. So, but the features of a Gothic are this vertical emphasis, steeply pitched roofs, the board and batten vertical exterior, that's the siding, the bay windows, the pointed arches on the windows. Again, there's not really any pure style, but there's features of all these, a lot of these buildings. I have to go down to Deansboro for the next one, folks.
Oh, yeah.
You recognize this house?
Yeah.
The next style is the Italianate Villa on Route 12B in Deansboro, New York, downtown Deansboro. All my relatives are buried in the Deansboro Cemetery, so it's a nice little hamlet. This is right on 12B. It's what we call Italian Villa
Is
style.
that the old Pierce house there?
Pardon?
Is that the old Pierce house? Charlie
Yeah.
and Betty's?
I thought my age told
Is
it.
that the old Pierce house, Charlie and Betty Pierce built that?
I'm not sure who lives in now. I don't know.
No, lived there.
I don't know, Joey. But this house has features of this era. And if I can push the right button here. Notice that bracketing up on top there. You see that? Like all that bracketing holding up. It's the flat roof. The flat roof is very common. Many times there's a cupola up on top of these flat roofs. Not always, because they're hard to maintain and people take them down, just like they take their porches off, which is a terrible situation. You should not take your porches off, I'm sorry. They're expensive, but they look better in the house with porches.
Yep.
And but this bracketing is very typical. Also, notice over the windows, those transfers, those sort of fancy, they're like three pieces of window over the windows. And this house has on the left side, and I guess it'd be better to come back one or two. Yeah, right here. It has a two-story bay window. See that? So So it's got the bracketing, it's got this two-story windows, it's got a big porch, it's got a flat roof. It fits much of the Italian 8-billet style. And it's been a well-kept house. Okay. In Clinton, we have a variation up on Fountain Street. No cupola, but it has the bracketing, it has similar styles there. You got bracketing all around the back, it's not just on top. And William Street, some carpenter, I think, built these three houses. They're very, very similar. Flat roofs. Now the first one has the first one behind the stone church has a bay window on top of the porch. It's another variation. But these are usually some of the features: square towers, cupolas, hip roofs, overhanging eaves, bracketing, semicircular arched windows, bay windows, and lots of porches. Again, they don't all have all those things, but that's typical. So those are three on William Street. They all have porches, flat roofs, no cupolas. Now this on 72 College, again, is sort of eclectic. I just want to show it. It has the bracketing, but not much else, so I'm not sure what style this is. But East Park Road, this is an interesting house. East Park Road, Dr. Menard's demo is, that bracketing is beautiful up on top there, see that? And they got the lintels over the windows, and they're different style. The style at the bottom, the first floor is different from the second floor. And then they got a bay window on top of the porch. That was quite popular back then, I guess, wasn't it? Stick your bay window on top of your porch. From the front, this is a beautiful house from the front, I think. Two-story bay windows on the right, bracketing, transom lintels over the windows, different styles. A third story with 3 windows. Gorgeous house. 3 College Hill Road. You recognize this place?
Yes.
Well, the cupola is gone. You won't see the cupola there anymore. This is up on the hill there, the first curve. There's another shot of it in the recent history. And down on College Street at Elm, there's this house, again, has all the bracketing, no cupola, but nice looking house. Over on Old Kirkland Ave, Earl Schweiger's house. For brick, they use brick, they use, this is a brick one, in nice shape. Probably dates from the 1890s. Barbara Street is this home has bracketing. Notice how they paint the brackets different colors. It's sort of featured bracketing, right? This house is 67 College, built by Mr. Bartlett. There's a little hamlet called Bartlett over by Westmoreland. You know where Bartlett is? You never been to Bartlett?
No.
Okay, you didn't miss too much. But this house, Bartlett was the owner of a lot of lumber yards, and a wealthy guy who built this house in the 1860 period. And this sort of has a cupola. It has a Greek roof there in the front. So is it a Greek revival? Is it Italian villa? I don't know. But I want to show it to you. Oops. Oh yeah, wait a minute. Now up at Oriskany Falls, again, just to show you the bracketing, the different variations. This is the old New York O&W train station, Oriskany Falls. On Main Street, as you go towards Madison, on the left. It's been moved a couple times, so this is not the original place where it was. Look how heavy that bracketing is compared to some others. Now, this building on College Street should be familiar to all of you. We have lots of bracketing across the top, right? This is built in 1880. So even commercial structures were sort of adopting this housing type of features. Bracketing is a feature, it's not really that structural. It does help keep the roof up. But this was originally the onion block, O-N-Y-A-N. How would you like to be called onion all your life, you know? And on the third story was an opera house. This was an opera house at that time. Now, the word opera house is a misnomer. They did not have big operas there. They had, it was basically like a music hall. So there was an opera house over the shoe store on West Park Row. It was called the Scholar Opera House, and this was the Onion Opera House on the third floor with all those vertical windows. Later, it was the Masonic Temple, and now it's, I believe, part of the living quarters for the Harris family. But notice the bracketing on the first floor. There's all that bracketing across the front there.
Yeah.
Oops.
Oh.
Anyhow, there's bracketing, and that, this is one of the, this is another feature. You walk by this place, or you drive by it every day. Do you know that this has an iron front? Those columns were made in a foundry in Utica, New York.
Really?
It's not wood. It's made in Utica, New York, and they got even include the bracketing in that. But there's a whole district in New York City called the Iron Front area or something, Iron Front District. There's lots of buildings with this iron architecture. So we have one example here right in Clinton. This on College Street again is sort of a combination of different styles. It was a grammar school one time at 86 College Street, torn down several years ago.
Where was that?
Where what?
Where on College Street was that?
86.
Was that right? Oh,
Is
that's
that
right near-
what's your question?
It was right near College. I was just trying to find out where it was. It's
Well,
right
it's just
near-
beyond Woodlawn on the right.
That's what I thought. So I used to
It's
live
on the north side,
Okay.
just before Dwight and just after Woodlawn.
There was a house on Dwight Ave too, because I used to clean for the.
I'm going to show you the houses on that site today.
That's, I was just gonna ask you the same.
Queen Anne, 1880s to 1910. Is anybody sleeping? You want to stand up and stretch? You're all awake?
No.
Shall I continue? Queen Anne, different materials used, vertical emphasis, towers, turrets, projecting bays, porches, stained glass, complex gable arrangements, steeply pitched roofs, plus gable end walls, sometimes shingle patterns. Again, styles of mixtures, eclecticism, clapboard walls with horizontal patterned shingles sometimes, asymmetrical as opposed to federal style, which is symmetrical. Massive chimneys, or as one of my friends used to call them, chimneys. He said chimney fire. They're chimneys, not chimneys. Using a variety of materials, decorative elements. So let's see if you can recognize these. Where's that one? Huh?
Marvin Street.
It says Marvin Street, is that right? That was where Dick Aldrich used to live, right? And that's a. See the different patterns. There's a round window up in the gable there. There's another window on that third story, and there's a bay window, two-story bay window on the left, and different pieces of lumber here and there. It's sort of a combination of everything. There's through the whole sink head, you know. In good shape today. Looks nice. On Williams Street, I'm sorry all these trees are in the way, but this is 24 Williams on the right side going to the third.
Yep.
It's the second house on Williams, beyond the old doctor's office and the telephone building. And this is, again, got different styles. You got some shingling and some other things there. This is a better picture of it. Again, two-story bay windows, and the third story, and two bay windows on the left side, and you know they got bracketing on the porch roof there, and the porch roof, the second-story porch roof. Second-story porches were real fancy back then. This house at Chestnut and Williams, you recognize this house? And again, painting brings out some of these features, you see. They paint certain things different color, and so that is that house. Where's this house? Well, if you can read, this is right across, it says opposite St. Peter's.
No, that's not, I know that.
But look at all the roof lines. There's two different Greek type roofs up at the top there. There's one on the right side. There's another two-story bay window on the right side there. You see that? They got a porch. There's some fancy work over the porch. And it's next to the Masonic, they call it Masonic Temple, which is the old Masonic Temple. Okay, on Chestnut Street is this house, formerly owned by Bill and Gretchen Balch, and also some other people. This is a big house. Queen Anne. I'm not sure who lives there now. And this is really a big Queen Anne house. So you know Howie Schaefer. Numerous
Yeah,
parents.
36 rooms in there.
This was built by General Smythe back in the 1880s.
Yeah.
It's got everything, towers, porches, bay windows, 2 stories, different varieties of textures.
Yeah.
You know, they got everything in this house. How plain our houses are today, really? Isn't it boring how plain they are today?
Yeah, they are.
Why are they so plain?
Because it costs
Because
money.
they cost money.
Right.
Can you imagine all the woodwork to fix up some of these
Yeah. I imagine.
porches? Another picture of it. There's second-story porches, first-story porches, two-story bay windows, porches on the third story,
Yeah.
chimneys,
Yep.
you know, you name it.
And he lived there by himself for a long time.
Pardon?
He lived there by himself for a long time. 36 rooms.
And then there's on the far left, is there a little covered, there's a French word, I don't know what that French word is. That says what that is. Okay, Queen Anne. You got Queen Anne now?
Yeah.
For the test? There's a carriage house out back. It has 2 apartments in it today. There's also, this is the dining room when it was the Smythe House in the 1880s. Notice the gas light?
Yeah.
I'm not sure what they burned in those lights, but some fabric, some liquid. And here it was for sale in 1910. It was called A Delightful Country Place. And it describes it, I can't read it there, but there were Queen Anne's in the area. On State Street in Utica is this house. Porches, again, the turrets, 3rd story stuff. Saw you up on the hill in 1906, it's now gone. But it had those characteristics, 3-4-story porches. I don't know where this one was. This is Genesee Street, Utica. Look at that. Is that turret nice, huh? Wouldn't the kids love to play in the turret? The 8-year-old boys, they love that, wouldn't they?
Oh, that's,
I'm not sure where this one is. This isn't that local.
that's really got style. It's pretty. The whole, yeah, that's huge.
Okay, we're moving to the Second Empire of the French, in case you're wondering what country.
Yeah.
The mansard roof. Unfortunately, we only have one in town. Where is it?
No. Yeah. That's
You got it?
towards the ocean, right?
Beautiful house.
Right in the middle. Yeah, it's beautiful.
We used to call that the Emily Smythe House.
It's beautiful.
I'm not sure who owns it now, but that's got that front tower with the 4-story tower. Isn't that great?
Yeah.
The mansard roof is that third roof, and the 3rd-story roof that sort of swings out, and they put door windows in it.
Is that right? It's beautiful.
That's where they get the term mansard roof. I guess mansard was an architect, I'm not sure.
Absolutely beautiful.
But this is very common. Unfortunately, it's the only house in Clinton that is designed that way. But it's a beautiful example of it. And I've been in it a couple of times. They've rearranged the inside quite a bit. But this has the door windows on the 3rd story. It has the 2-story bay windows here. But we do have one about 15 miles away from us here. On Route 20 in Madison. You recognize this one?
Yeah.
Next to school. It's a much smaller house, but it's got the same 3rd-story mansard roof. And so I wanted to put that in here. And next door to this house on Route 20, oh, excuse me, is this eight-sided house. It's an eight-sided cobblestone house in Madison, New York. You can't beat that. You recognize that? It's right next door to this one. Okay? We'll talk about those houses in a minute too, quickly. Because here in Deansboro we have an eight-sided house. Right across the cemetery. There's a lot of trees. It's hard to see this house, but this is up in Deansboro, New York. Okay, I know the time's running late. You probably get to your Bills game, but let me go through about another 10 minutes of kit homes. What were kit homes? Does anybody know what kit homes were? Does anybody live in one? Nobody lives in a kit home here tonight? Today? Well, kit homes were done back in the 1880s to 1950, and they're still around. If you want to buy a log cabin, they were basically a factory cut all this lumber and certain designs, that fit into an architecture's design, and they put it on a train and ship it out to your house wherever you are in this country. You had to buy a lot, you had to dig a foundation, and then when all the materials came, all the lumber, you had to put together. So that's what a kit house was. Of course, you could hire somebody to do it for you, I suppose, but the thing came in pieces, different size lumber, different windows and shingles and everything. And so we're going to see some of them right now. And there are a few right in Clinton and Clark Mills. Not just Sears, but Montgomery Ward, Gordon, Van Tyne, and Davenport, Aladdin Company in Bay City. Also, and others were in that business of making kits and shipping them out on a rail car. The firms provided lumber, lath for the walls, siding, shingles, finishing lumber, millwork, flooring, ceiling paper, building paper, pipe cutter, sash, weights, hardwood paint. And the owner provides the labor, concrete, brick and plaster, plumbing fixtures, and finishes the lawn grading and seeding. Okay, so right here, very close to where we're sitting today, is a Sears home. You ever go by 7 Kellogg Street? Right down the dip? Okay. This is a Sears home. You might know the Orbises on William Street or Barbara Street. Their father, they owned that house at one time, Steve Orbis. He was looking down the hill. Anyhow, cost $907 back then. How's that? 4 bedrooms, 10 by 15, 1 bath upstairs, I'm sure. 2 closets for 4 bedrooms. That's not a bad deal, right? If you don't have teenagers, you need more than 2 baths. The kitchen was 12 by 12 with a pantry and a porch. That's pretty good. Outside dimensions 25 by 24, almost square. Hardwood flooring on the first floor. They put cheap pine on the second floor. Cypress siding and cedar shingles. Well, that's a good example. This house on Marvin, I'm not sure this is a kit home or not. It is a craftsman style. And I'm not really sure if it's a kit home. I have no proof. Unfortunately, most of these kit homes did not have any markings on the lumber. They never marked the lumber. So many times you found out because the local paper said they had a story saying so-and-so was putting up a kit home on Marvin Street or something. So I'm not sure about this one, but Craftsman up in Fayetteville did a lot of work, and so I'm not sure. Here's another view of that same house. Why isn't it working? Oops. There we go. Okay. I said I'd go back to 86 College at some time earlier today. You saw the school at 86 College Street. Okay. Here is 86 College today. This was a Sears home, 1910. It was changed hands quite a few times recently. Bill Schroth, who was the president of the Savings Bank of Utica in the 1960s, got it and did a big redo. And now I believe what's her name?
Lester.
Dr. Gale's daughter-in-law, the dentist owns it. Joe Gale and his wife, I believe. But keep your eye on this house, you're going to see a couple changes. There. This is how it looked in 1920. It was Minnie Peters' house. Is that a great name, Minnie Peters? She's on the porch there. You see her sitting down in the chair? Same house, except they've taken off the third floor dormers. haven't they? But the house is, they might have put the addition out back, I don't really know. But this is the house back in the 20s. Minnie Peters. Now, on Utica Road, next to the Methodist Church, is this house across from the Lutheran home. You recognize it? This is a Sears house, also. It was built it came in 1920, roughly by train. It was put together by Thomas Britcher, who had a fuel business on Taylor Ave, and he hired somebody to put together, obviously. But this is the house at 97 Utica Street, or Utica Road. Here's a side view. Notice there's a second story, sort of a push-out bay window over the door. That was quite typical,
Oh, I see.
in not just kid homes, but that was quite typical. And this cost $1,100. Such a deal, right? 4 bedrooms, closets, porch, wow, doors, yellow pine, pantry, second floor, bathroom, 8.5-foot ceilings. You have basketball players in that house.
I was just gonna say.
And 7-foot ceiling in the cellar. How's that for a deal? It's even better. 28 by 38 on a lot. 38. You need 38-foot wide lot. And you can buy a heating plant for $107. This is from the OD about 1970, I think it was, showing the floor plan. It's basically just four rooms on each floor, plus 1 bathroom and a pantry. So each floor had, there was, on the front right was a dining room or a living room, sometimes a second parlor, and then a kitchen, and the second floor was all bedrooms and a bath. The bath was usually on the second floor back then. If you had more than one. Here it is again in an ad. And this was quite popular. This house, this is in Old Forge, New York. You know where Old Forge is? It's 156 Garment Ave. It's the street parallels the main street going through Old Forge on the left. So if you turn over there someday, you'll see this exact house. That's the house we just showed you on Utica Street. Okay? Again, they can paint them different colors. Now, this house on Mulberry was a Buckley home for many years. I think somebody told me it was a Sears home, but I can't prove this one at all. But it's possible. This is Steve and James' house on Dwight. It was a very long and narrow, as you can see. It was not a wide house at all. But it's still there, and it's a nice house. It's called the Ivanhoe. This was more expensive back in 1920 or 1915. And here are some of the features of it. A narrow width with a fireplace, built-in bookcases, art glass windows, whatever an art glass, does that mean colored glass, I guess? French doors between living and dining rooms. A 7 by 17 entry hall. Isn't that excessive a little bit? Huh? It's a big entry hall. They were big on entry halls back then. They liked entry halls. Built 1914, built from Sears by Cornelius de Rett, the head of buildings and grounds at Hamilton College. There's a sleeping porch and a private veranda out back. And it could be built, they said back then, for $3,200. So, what do you think? 16 to white. Also in Clark Mills, we have this house on White Street, 39 White Street. Some of you may have known Hezekiah Webster, who was quite active in Clark Mills and the Stone Church here in Clinton for years. This was his house on White Street. It was another Sears house. One bath. He paid taxes in 2013, $3,300 for taxes. It has 3 bedrooms, hardwood floors, bungalow style they called it. And there also are 2 other homes in Clark Mills that were kits, and I don't have pictures of them, but there were also 2 others over there. The color, okay, the color is now this color, but it was this terrible yellow. And on White Street also are these 2 houses. If you ever go over White Street, off French Road, take a ride someday. These 2 houses are just up the street from the house I just showed you. And I'm suspicious, again, I don't have any proof, but with that 3rd story, sort of like a window up in the 3rd story, I'm suspicious that they might also be kit homes. But I cannot prove it to you at all. But if you want to buy a kit house, you can buy a catalog for $25 from Dover Publications in Mineola, New York, and they'll send you many more pictures of various kinds of homes, camps, garages, houses, and they were very, very popular back in the 1920s and the 40s. They sort of faded away in the 50s. I'm not sure why.